And on this week's Homegrown Rocker, we have a special guest on the phone line this evening. It's been a few years since we've spoken to you, Norman Nardini. Say hello to our audience.
How you doing over there? Y'all's beautiful. Talking to you from the east side of Pittsfield, Pennsylvania, with the professor here. Going to talk about some music, the kind that'll snap your girdle, make you feel like a full-grown man, a full-grown woman. Hey!
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, what I've heard...
I'm alive, Jim, I'm alive.
Yeah, that's great as well, definitely. Well, I guess you kind of answered my next question. How are you doing, and what have you been up to lately?
Well, you know, the sad news is I lost my bass player of, Harry Bottoms. I had about 35 years. And it was a big loss. And so that kind of stopped me in my tracks a little bit. And so I stopped gigging constantly like I had done my whole life with the band. And then I started playing some solo dates and featuring different music that I write. And then people started liking that. And that scared me. I'm frightened. And then I started doing some dates with the band again, with newer guys, different guys and stuff. And people were liking that. So I'm at a kind of great, amazing place right now. I'm into this, I wouldn't call it singer-songwriter stuff, but it's about the songs and the lyrics. But I'm also into strapping on an electric frying pan and giving a quick spanking, I'm in a great place because I'm doing all, I guess all the colors of the rainbow musically that I'm capable of covering. And I've been playing a little bit with this kid out of New York City named Solomon Hicks. He's out of Harlem, and he's like a young rising blues star, real pretty kid, real nice boy, and he plays his ass off, sings, and I've been backing him up occasionally when he has the bigger gigs. And he took me on a couple cruises and took me to Vegas and, just some cool, fun dates. So, I'm really at a good spot for an old bag of meat. With hey, just a little bit saggy in the back seat. Can I get a hallelujah out there?
Hallelujah, definitely. All right. And, of course, one of the reasons we're speaking with you this evening, too, of course, people who know your career know that in the 1970s you were a part of the band Diamond Rio. And just a quick kind of a recap of the group a little bit. How did that project come together?
Well, Diamond Rio started... I was working at a studio in East Liberty, which is on the east side of Pittsburgh, and I was just a kid, and I really was kind of like the low man on the totem pole at the studio as far as a musician, as a co-on musician. But I got on a lot of projects, and I asked the guy down in the studio, I said, "Hey man, I want to do an arrangement. Let me cut it." So I did one, and it got a record deal. But it got a deal for some other guys. And then I said, well, let me try it again. And I tried it again. And this time it was a song, we cut a song called Ain't That Peculiar, an old Marvin Gaye song. And Big Tree Records, which ended up being a division of Atlantic. And the guy that ran Big Tree ended up running Atlantic. His name was Doug Morris. But anyway, that started the Diamond Rio thing, because we had a charted record. And then our guitar player, singer, who was really talented, Bubs McKeag, left the band because the rest of us were acting too crazy, and we were wild and out of our minds. We frightened our own people. And so we ended up with Warren King on guitar, who was a monster. And the second record was a record that featured Warren King, and that was called Dirty Diamonds. And then we did a thing called Rough Cuts. And both of those records are pretty great. I think Rough Cuts was the best record we ever made. But then now I hear this new one, the Diamonds record, and it gets me all fired up, and I start hollering at the moon. So it was just a great time. It was the 70s. It was over right before. It was over halfway between 1979 was when the band closed. So it actually closed out the 70s for all of us. And when I hear it now, it just... And we knew we were dangerous. But we also knew we were dangerous as people because we were too crazy. And we scared all the nice people in the business. And that's the great part of the story, because it's actually real rock and roll. It's homegrown, made by crazy maniac musicians.
That's usually where the best rock and roll comes from. Yep.
Well, I mean, it ain't always the nice people. I don't know if anybody ever accused Jerry Lee Lewis of being a nice guy. If you know what I'm saying, hey, it takes all kinds, and you got to judge the music on the music and how it makes you feel in your heart and soul. And I just know that was a special time in my life. And I know when we got on stage with other bands, they weren't in the dressing room like they were standing on the side of the stage going, "Who do these guys think they are?" And that's the way you're supposed to. That's real rock and roll. When the other entertainers are coming out there going, "What's he doing on my stage? I'm going to have to get him thrown off. He's too dangerous. Can I get a hallelujah?"
And of course, last year you were involved in creating an album of unreleased Diamond Rio songs called The Diamonds. And how did this project begin? What gave you the idea of putting out that album?
A buddy of mine, Steve Ackery, a great friend of my old guitar player, Paul Shook. I met Steve through Shook, who had passed on. But anyway, Steve and I had become friends over the years, and he's always been kind of like into the business and into the music. And he just said, "Hey, man, what would you think about doing something like this?" It was his idea. And I had, it was all cut on 2-inch tape. And a couple years ago, I had it transferred to digital, and then I just let it sit there. And when Steve said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing something?" and he would handle the business. And I thought, yeah, man, because business isn't my strong suit. If you know what I'm saying. I'm the music guy. So we put together a little team and put it out, and everybody seems real impressed with it. And that just makes my heart smile because, like I say, it was a great time of life. Great. I mean, you think of all the guys that have died between now and 1979. You think like, man, if I wasn't still alive, that would be my life's work. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it brings a tear to your eye, but it does to me a little bit, because I think, so many guys, the work they did in the 70s or in the 80s was the end of the work they did in their lives. So to have been a part of that and still be alive and still feeling dangerous and still wanting to cut everybody else's grass is a great place to be. I'm a lucky guy.
All right. Well, we're about to hear something off of the Diamonds, and this is the lead-off track. What would you like to say about the song "Live Wire"?
Well, I think we cut that a couple different ways, and mostly not with the rhythm track, or not so much with the lead vocal, but with the guitars. And both ways we cut it, it was to the bone. Something about that thing was so close to the bone. And we called that the dog rock beat, where you would, instead of playing the hi-hat, you would just play on the floor tom. That eighth note pattern, dum, 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 stuff like that. So it was more like close to the bone and more animalistic. And Frank Zori, the singer, was still alive. He was on that. He felt that was kind of like his. He sparkled through that. And Warren showed the fact that he wasn't just a great lead guitar player. He showed he was a great rhythm guitar player. I mean, a really great rhythm guitar player. We was a freaky, a little bit of a freak show, On the good side, not in a bad way, but in a good way. I mean, it was like when you were watching us, you were watching, some maniacs up there, which is beautiful. I was never all about the nice guys and the, fancy underpants and all that. I wasn't about the guys that were farting through silk, if you know what I'm saying. Altoona, can I get a hallelujah?
Yeah. Let's give it a listen. Live Wire. And again, music from Diamond Rio with
how you doing?
with Norman Nardini, and you're hearing it on the Homegrown Rocker.
Yeah, baby.
And welcome back to the Homegrown Rocker. I'm the Professor Jim Price. My guest on the phone line is Norman Nardini. And we are talking, Norman, we're talking Diamond Rio and the album The Diamonds, which is, again, a compilation of material from 1978 and 79. Norman, how would you describe the sound of Diamond Rio at that point, 1978, 79?
Well, it was animalistic, and it was close to the bone, but it also featured a high-level lead singer. Frank Zorri was a really as good as any singer. I mean, maybe not as good as Paul Rogers, maybe not as good as Steve Marriott, but if they were an A, he was an A minus. And Warren King on guitar, he was an A plus. So those two guys were both stars, and so the guitar playing and the lead singing were as good as anyone was doing it. And I had a great rhythm. I was playing bass at the time, and I had Robbie Jones playing drums, and Robbie was a great drummer and a great friend. He was like my best friend when we were little kids, you know. And so you know, a lot of times, a lot of great music in our generation comes from guys that all come from the same neighborhood and knew each other. You know, I think those bands of guys that like knew each other their lives and, you know, were friends and fam and all that, it really helps to me, you know, like the Beatles, those guys knew each other. They were from the same kind of place, you know, things like that. And, you know, Little Richard and James Brown and those guys, they would use Stax Records. All them people on Stax Records lived within 2 miles of the studio. You know, stuff like that. You know, it's like New Jersey. You know what I mean? They all knew each other. They were all rubbing up again with each other. They were all going out with the same girls, all that. And I think the Diamonds had that. I had a ton of that, and it spoke well for us, you know, because we loved each other, and we knew our weaknesses, and we also knew each other's strengths.
All right. And, of course, the Diamonds album compiling 10 songs. Norman, was it a difficult decision on what songs made the cut onto the album?
It wasn't mine. Steve Ackrey, the guy I mentioned before that put the record together, made the decision on the songs and in the order of the songs and all that. So I wasn't really a part of that. There was a couple songs that we still haven't ever put out that didn't make it to the record. A song called Ball and Chain, a song called Roxana, a song called Blue Magic, and probably a couple Out in the Street. I mean, there's 4 right there. So, I mean, there's still some more songs. But I think the smart thing for me to do was sit back and let Steve make this album, because he was the guy that was going to be pushing it. And I think he did a great job on his end, you know. But I wasn't involved in picking the songs or putting the order together. And step back. I let my main man, Steve Ackrey, make some decisions that mattered, you know.
Yep. And besides Steve, was there anyone else who helped you out with the creation of the album? Anybody else you want to recognize?
Yeah, I had an engineer, a guy that was working with me at my studio that I was training. He's a drummer and working on his engineering skills. A guy named Bryce Foster ended up doing the final mix. And I think he did a fantastic job on it.
All right. And how may listeners obtain or listen to the album? How can they get a copy of it?
That I'm not sure about, but if I know that on Facebook, if you look for Steve Ackrey, you can find him, or if you look for Larry Germack, Germack, those are both a couple guys that know about, or Get Hip Records. Get Hip Records in north side of Pittsburgh. I think that those are the people that are actually controlling the product. And they have albums and CDs. And a bunch of people are getting the albums, the vinyl.
Yep.
We did a show a few months back at Get Hip Records to celebrate the release of this thing. And Frank Zorri come out, and I would kind of was like the entertainment as just played solo acoustic. Then Frank got up and we did a couple songs together. It was really cool. bunch of old bucks getting it back up on the stage again. You know, putting the meat on the table, Professor, putting the meat on the table, because we're still able. Can I get a hallelujah? Woo!
Hallelujah, for sure.
My man.
And I'll tell our listeners, too, that every song you're hearing off of the Diamonds this evening is off the vinyl. Yep, so we're, I have the vinyl copy here, so that's what the folks will be hearing tonight. Yep.
I love it. Love
it. All right, let's go with another song from the album. Norman, what would you like to say about High Roller?
Well, High Roller was, you know, that whole deal started with that bass, like boom, 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 and the drum beat. And that was me and the drummer, my best friend Robbie the Beadman Johns, putting that track together. And that's at the time we were writing that way. Sometimes, you know, we had our own way of writing. We were young, and that's what we. And that track really had some kind of pop that we felt was like we did a couple dates with Aerosmith and Nugent and a bunch of them, Kiss and, you know, them kind of bands and stuff. And when we were playing, my brain was always thinking about, what do we got to do to scare them other bands? What do we got to do to steal a few fans from them other bands? You know, because we couldn't settle for just being good, because we were from Pittsburgh and we wasn't getting a ton of support from the corporate radio community here. So we had to go out and be somebody. And so High Rollers was kind of like us going like, hey, you know what? We can play close to the bone, but we can also step it up into this other level. And it gave Warren King a chance to just rip guitar, and Frank come up with great lyrics. I believe the lyrics are about Frank and his roller coaster addiction. You know, he was addicted to riding roller coasters.
Interesting stuff. Well, let's give it a listen. Again, the song is High Roller. It's off the Diamonds album, Diamond Rio Music, and you're hearing it again on the Homegrown Rocker.
My man.
Let it rip through High Rollers.
And we have Norman Nardini on the phone line this evening, and we've been talking Diamond Rio a good bit this evening. And, of course, you'd mentioned already the earlier period of Diamond Rio when you guys were just starting to surface, 1974 and 75. What was it like getting signed to Big Tree Records at that point and releasing your first album?
Well, it wasn't too long before that I was playing in a lounge band. And I hate in my guts being on stage. How do you relate to people? I mean, it just wasn't for me. Maybe there's I don't want to bring down guys that enjoy being in lounge bands, but it wasn't for me. And so I started working at the studio, and when we made the first record, I really was I had been on some big shows. I played with Candy Heat, and I played with a mess of folks. But I never really had a real act or established anything real strong. So, and even the first time in Rio wasn't a real act. It was just guys that worked. It was me and the drummer were a team, and we had Bubs McKeag, who out front, and then we had Frank Zori, both great singers, both great contributors. But we really didn't know what it was. And then as soon as we put that record out, we started going on shows. One of our first big shows was with Aerosmith. Not long later, we're opening for Kiss. For the Kiss Alive album at Cobo Hall, we opened that show. We're down in Texas playing with Ted Nugent on his guitar battles, playing with Blue Oyster Cult, down in Kansas and Arkansas. I mean, just Rush. All of a sudden we're on all these shows, and me and the drummer, and all of us were really stepping out of just being in cover bands. And like I say, I'm sad to say, I come out of a lounge band playing bass. And but we picked up real quick. We got smart real quick. We got real competitive real quick. And it didn't take us long. And we also got real crazy real quick. I ain't bragging about that. But and the craziness let Bubs McKeag decided he didn't want to be doing it anymore. I mean, it ain't no life unless you're in a truck for 6 hours straight. Somebody's driving who didn't sleep last night. You can smell them from behind them. I mean, it's not a good life. It's a tough life. And McKeag just wanted out. So then we put Warren King, and Warren King was a beast, and he didn't mind being in the back of the truck, sleeping on the floor, sleeping on the stage of the gig that we're playing that night because we didn't sleep all night. All that stuff. But we had the music in mind, so and being competitive. We never wanted to go on a stage and not feel like we didn't steal the show. And that was our thing, and it wasn't just like a passing thought, especially to me. I was insane, and still am, about being extremely competitive and about being good isn't something I'm interested in. I'm interested in scaring people. Still am, and that's the way the Diamonds were. We were young and stupid, man. We were beautiful, and we had the gall and the we were not afraid to fight the giant. How you doing?
And describe the sensation when Diamond Rio got on the Billboard hit chart with "Ain't That Peculiar." How did it feel to have a song that was circulating around the country?
It didn't feel real, Professor. It didn't feel real. And then the guy that was running our business, Tom Causey, a music business legend, calls up and says, "Hey, next week we're going to L.A." I says, "Okay, what's up?" He says, "We're going to be on Dick Clark, American Bandstand." That's when the first time I just went like, that sounds real. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we actually are on the charts. We actually have a presence. And we started learning about how the music business works and, showing up at all the trade magazines, Record World, Billboard. There was another one. There were three main, publications. But it was just, that's when it started being real. And then the gigs kept coming in, and we'd be traveling and playing with these people that, had big support teams behind them and money behind them and experience. And they had already failed a couple times, a lot of these guys, before they had gotten out there. This was our first time to fail, because we, like I say, we were musicians, but we weren't in the fight. And being in the fight, okay, now you're on the charts. Really? Let me see that again. I got to show my mother. That's what it was, just like for any kid. We were amazed. We were phenomenized by the fact that we had an existence.
All right. Well, we're going to go to another track off the Diamonds album. And this time, Norman, what would you like to say about Gone Dead Train?
Man, it was written by Jack Nitsky, who was a guy that hung out with the Rolling Stones when they were kids. And it was the song was cut for a movie called Performance that Mick Jagger starred in, and Randy Newman was the singer of this version of it, and it was really cool. But we decided to add an element of pain and anguish to it, and give Warren King a chance to show some dangerous slide guitar playing. And I'm just really proud of what we did with that. I'm nuts about it. Well, I think we did a great job interpreting a great song that had great roots and great presentation from the get, But I think ours stands up. I'd say, hey, let's put him in a cage match and see what's going on, right?
There you go. All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is Gone Dead Train, the Diamond Rio version from the Diamonds album. And again, you're hearing it on the Homegrown Rocker.
Gone Dead Train. Where my engine was pumping steam, rolling at your heart too fast. Just to keep awake, I'm hauling out and burn up the tracks. I laugh at the conductor who's telling me my code.
the Homegrown Rocker, completing our first hour with more music from Diamond Rio and the song Gone Dead Train. That again from the Diamonds album, which came out last year. Unreleased songs from 1978 and 79 in the career of Diamond Rio. We'll continue our conversation with Norman Nardini, our guest via phone, as we get into hour number 2. And again on the Homegrown Rocker, I'm the Professor Jim Price. We have a guest on the phone line. His name, Norman Nardini. Norman, again, say hello to our audience.
Hey, guys. It's me, Little Big Mouth, Norman, Roosevelt, Aloysius, Nicodemus, Amadeus, Valentino, Giovanni, Romeo, Bruno, Raphael, Luciana, Luigi, Nardini. And I want to stick it right in your ear. Tune time, baby.
All right. And of course, we've been talking about your happenings and also Diamond Rio, of course, with the The Diamonds album, which was put out last year. And Norman, Diamond Rio, of course, released the second album, Dirty Diamonds, 1976. What was the atmosphere with the group when that album hit the streets?
It was a crazy time. We cut the rhythm tracks up in Beaver Falls, but we did the overdubs at the Hit Factory in New York City, the studio that John Lennon hung out at. And so we were up in New York City a couple of weeks cutting the vocals and the guitars. And the guy that produced the record was this English dude, Adrian Barber, who was a friend of the Beatles. And so he was hanging there, and a bunch of his English friends and crazy people were hanging out at the studio. So it was a bit of a freak show. And we were playing a little bit hard. You know, we were just learning how to not be a lounge band and establishing ourselves and playing big notes and with the anger and learning how to do that. And I think that album was the peak of that. That was the feel about it, you know. And it was a little bit like, kind of like playing like Aerosmith a little bit, but with a guitar player that had more anger and more fire. And a lot of people love that album and still do. Like there's a big, not a big, but there's a, what would you say? There's an awareness of it in Europe, and a lot of people talk about it as one of the best undiscovered hard rock albums of all time. So Dirty Diamonds did a lick. You know, but when it came out here in Pittsburgh, because we were like a lounge band when we first started, it scared everybody because, like, well, who do you guys think you are? You can't play like this. So, you know, having your hometown watch you grow up can sometimes be a little bit troublesome. And and growing pains. You know what that means? You know, sometimes you gotta learn to grow with the world watching you. A lot of people don't realize that, you know, people in show business or in music, you know, the world's watching you grow up and the world's watching you make your mistakes. We ain't asking for no pity. I'm just putting that meat on the table, so to speak.
Well, I think I can safely say that here in Altoona, Pennsylvania, there are a number of people who are big fans of the Dirty Diamonds album. Thanks especially to, sadly, a radio announcer who's no longer with us from the Altoona area, Steve Kelsey. He used to play Diamond Rio a lot on his all-night album rock show, which was midnight to 6 a.m. on Saturday nights. But yeah, that turned a lot of people on to Diamond Rio and, of course, the Dirty Diamonds album. So, yeah, you definitely have some love for that album here in Altoona.
Rock and roll people, when they hear it, you know, if they don't know who it is, they hear the music. And that's the name of it. You know, it's like, if you're doing it, people feel it. If they never get to hear it, it doesn't happen. But when they hear it, they tell you, you know, hey, I'm feeling what you did. And I think that album did that. You know, the physicality of it, the nastiness of it, the youth, the arrogance. We had all that stuff. and that was a great time.
All right. And, of course, I'm sure, you were still touring at that point, too. I'll ask, were there any single shows or moments that stood out to you from that era? Any shows that still are big in your mind?
Well, here's one. This was in Arkansas. I talk about it in the song, but I say it was in Texas in the song, but it was really in Arkansas. And we were the Diamonds, and we were playing on a show with Rush was the opening act. The Diamonds went on second, and then Ted Nugent went on third. And Rush played and did a real good job. Everybody dug it. Then we come out, and we're doing well. And we kind of like turn the music down low, and Warren King walks out to the front of the stage and starts to play a solo. And we take it down so that he has room to grow, and we can build it up with him. And as the music's down low, this little kid sitting in the front row starts screaming, "Ted Nugent, Ted Nugent, Ted Nugent." So Warren gives him the finger. Everybody claps. And then that happens again. We take it down, and Warren gives the guy the finger because the guy's screaming at him. And finally, the third time, this guy's going, "Ted Nugent, Ted Nugent." Warren walked over right in front of him, unzipped his khaki pants, his baggy khaki pants. He shook his hips, and his pants fell to the floor, and he picked up his guitar over his head. And you never heard 2,000 people scream so loud. That sticks out in my mind, because that's rock and roll. Because it was just like, I can't believe this is happening. You know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things are, they live forever. And that's how legends are made, So that's one thing that, I remember all these shows we used to do in Salina, Ohio. They were called Red Eye shows. And they had real rock bands coming in there all the time and a couple great promoters. And every time we would play out there, it would be like, it would just be, you drive on the drive home, nobody slept. You were all just yakking about how much fun you had the night before, because everybody understood the down to the bone way we were banging it, how great it feels to, just like a team, like a football team coming home from a game they won. Hallelujah, right? I know Altoona understands that kind of talk.
All right. Well, let's get into another song off the Diamonds album. And Norman, tell us about the song Dangerous Stranger.
Wow. That was kind of like one of the first songs that I had a lot of input on, lyrically and musically. And I just really liked the way it turned out. It was real close to the bone, not like no banging lead guitar, just feel good rock and roll. A kind of little story song about a guy that's, wishing he was more than he was. Sound familiar, Norman? Well, yeah, it does. And but that to me was something about it was a real good record. I really loved the way we came out with Dangerous Stranger. And Frank, once again, nails the vocal.
All right, let's give it a listen. Dangerous Stranger. And again, it's Diamond Rio music from the Diamonds album. And you're hearing it on the Homegrown Rocker.
Stranger coming to your town, always looking for some danger. I'm a stranger, yeah, I just can't settle down and catch a midnight train to Cincinnati again. Then I'm jumping to a cab over to my baby's pad. Well, she's gonna want a little, I'm gonna give her more. Before the night is over, we'll be rolling on the floor, because I'm that dangerous stranger. second story man. Yes, I am. Live my life for the danger. I'm a stranger. You know what, baby? Yeah, you made me what I am. So keep your other man away. All my tools of the trade might catch him by surprise. I'll slash him right between the eyes. When there's something that I want, and I can't afford to get it, you know sooner or later I'm gonna end up with it. You won't know what hits you. Well, who's that dangerous stranger riding on your highways in your parks? Always looking for the danger. Looking through your window from the dark. Yeah. But call him the stranger. He don't buck.
Welcome back to the Homegrown Rocker. Again, I'm the Professor Jim Price. My guest on the phone line this evening, Norman Nardini. And we pick up the Diamond Rio story again, this time 1978. Norman, talk about the circumstances that led into the Rough Cuts album. What happened?
Wow. Rough Cuts. Well, we were still doing dates. We weren't getting the biggest dates anymore. But we were, doing like little tours of small clubs in the back roads of upstate New York and Ohio. With Canned Heat, who had fallen out of favor, to a certain, how things change, And so we were doing that kind of work. And then we were staying when we were at home. I developed a friendship with the guy that owned a studio that ran 2-inch tape with a real tape recorder, and also had the same board that Jimi Hendrix had at his studio in New York. So I stumbled into a situation, and I just beat up the guy that owned the studio for hours. And that's when we cut the Rough Cuts album, and it's also when we cut a lot of that the Diamonds album. So for a couple 2-3 year period, we were over there all the time, and we were just cutting everything we could. And that was a really cool period, because we wanted to get back out on the road again, but everybody was getting too crazy, and things were changing, and then the band was no longer. But all those last couple years of the Diamonds, when all this stuff was cut, we was operating at a pretty high level in the studio and on stage. We were doing a lot of punk gigs. Punk music had started coming in, and they rejected us and kind of liked us because they rejected us, because they liked to reject everything, because they saw themselves as rejects. Hey, you know what? The world's crazy. People are crazy. And we lived through a lot of great times in American music history. But that's kind of how I look back at it. It's like, the guys that, that don't want to like anybody, maybe they like us. And so they did. And we did a mess of shows with those kind of bands, Richard Hell. We played up at Max's Kansas City in New York City. Played with Willie DeVille. That was when I started the Diamonds, or the Tigers. But hanging out in those circles, David Johansen, those kind of cats. We ended up rubbing up against them on different shows. Great time, to be rocking. Hey, close to the ground. Somebody said he wanted to write my biography. He wanted to call it Under the Radar and Over the Top. And that's kind of that's when Under the Radar and Over the Top started, and what a great life it's been. I've just been trying to keep that going all these years. And here I am, an old bag of meat, little saggy in the back seat, still keeping it going. With the professor talking to Toontown about living large. Can I get a hallelujah?
Woo! Yeah. All right, let's hear another song off the Diamonds. And Norman, what would you say? I like to say about the song "Shake."
Well, "Shake" has an interesting history. If you never heard, the original version was done by Sam Cooke, and he wrote it. And it was an up-tempo thing. Dun, 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 dun. Listen while I talk to you. It was real up-tempo and kind of almost like big bandish. And it was a killer tune. And Frank Zori, who had the singer, had a great musical mind and a good sense about things. And he said, let's try this like, down here. And at the time we were getting into reggae music. We had all seen that movie, The Harder They Come, with Jimmy Cliff, and got introduced to that whole lazy vibration, baby. And I think that's kind of what we did with Shake. And I got to say, on the master of Shake, when we cut it, I tried a million different things. I put a mess of background vocals in there. I had an acoustic guitar. I had an electric piano. I even had horns. And then when we were mixing it, I just started saying, turn that off, turn that off, turn that off. And there we were. And that's what we left. And that's what's on the Diamonds album, is that bare bones. I mean, Frank, once again, sings great on it. Warren plays great rhythm. I think there's actually even a little bass solo on there. Let's hear it for the bass player. Wasn't he such a pretty boy? Sorry. Professor, I'm a nutbag.
That's the
I
way
can't be controlled.
That's the way we like you, Norman. Definitely.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe that's why we get along.
All right, let's give it a listen. The song is "Shake," and again, you're hearing it, Diamond Rio from the Diamonds album on the Homegrown Rocker.
Listen while I talk to you. I tell you what I'm gonna do. There's a new dance that's going around. I'll show you what I'm putting down. Move your body all around and then shake. That's the way you do it, shake. Get on up to it, baby, shake. Come on, shake. Shake it like a bowl of soup. Then you go loop to loop. Shake with all your might. If you're gonna do it, do it right. Come on, baby, leverage on that and then shake. You know how to do it, baby, shake. So get on up to it now, shake. Come on, shake. Let your backbone slim. Shake. Come on, baby, shake it, yo, with it. now shake. Ooh, now shake. Why don't you shake?
We've been playing a lot of Diamond Rio this evening. Obviously, we have Norman Nardini on the phone line with us this evening. I went back to the first album from 1975, and of course, Ain't That Peculiar was a hit single off that album. But radio stations in the Altoona area were also playing the lead-off track, Rock and Roll Till I Die. Norman, any thoughts about that song?
Well, that song was McKeag. When we started the band, when we started Diamond Rio, there was just me, the drummer, and McKeag. And so, I wasn't writing songs at the time. Robbie Johns wasn't writing songs at the time. So McKeag was our singer, our guitar player, our songwriter. And that was his. He just put that together, and we backed it up. And a mess of people liked it. So then we I think that was the first song we cut after Ain't That Peculiar was Rock and Roll Till I Die. And then we cut about 2 or 3 more songs with McKeag, and then Frank Zuri got involved with the band. He was in the Jaggers, and I asked him if he'd be interested in coming to work with us. And he said, hey, if you can get a record deal, I'll quit the Jaggers and come with you. And Ain't That Peculiar got the record deal. And it took a month or so, 6 weeks after that, Frank finally joined in. And to finish that first album, we started doing Frank Zuri songs. So that first album is kind of like half McKeag songs, half Frank Zuri songs with a couple, 2, 3 covers thrown in. So it was really, like I say, it wasn't a real band that, already had its message. It was already on a roll, And it wasn't a band that had already defined itself. We were making our mistakes in public. And we did some things right. We were also doing some things right in public. So it's kind of cool.
All right. Once again, Rock and Roll Till I Die, Diamond Rio from 1975 for our official local music flashback on the Homegrown Rocker. Norman, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the Diamond Rio years? Anything you haven't mentioned about that era that you want us to know?
Well, one thing I mentioned it earlier, and I talked about how it is like when guys from the same area and from the same neighborhood that knew each other and were in bands with other guys, and bands all flipped and changed members and all that, was running around with the same girls, all that craziness. There's Diamond Rio was part of that, and it was also part of a time in America when it was before cell phones. It was before the world changed, and the young people really had established a presence in the culture of America, and rock and roll was actually the language. Soul music and rock and roll were so much more dominant. There was, and the other thing about that era that was great was everybody watched Johnny Carson at 11 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? It's like there wasn't 3 or 4 different talk show hosts to watch at night. There was one. There was it was a different time. With the NFL hadn't and baseball was still almost as big as football, and football was it was just like everything was closer to the bone, and everything had much more of an innocence to it, and everything had much more of a mystery to it, because there wasn't this mad communication that we have today. So what happened with, Diamond Rio was like a capsule in time, but for some crazy music people. And it was a ton of fun. And I'm so lucky to have been a part of it. And it really set me up for the rest of my life, because it made me realize, that I am in control of my life, and that I have something to offer, and following through is more important than winning. It's all about the music, and looking back now, and when I hear the music that we made in the 70s, it's like I'm awful proud that we were doing what we were doing, because when you listen to the other bands in town, they wasn't doing what we was doing. They wasn't desperate. They wasn't dangerous. They sounded like nice guys that were playing music. We didn't sound like that. We sounded like guys that had a problem. like a lot of folks that are listening to me, to my big mouth, talking loud and saying nothing right now. Can I get a halloo back home? To my mountain people. Jim, to my mountain people in Altoon. How about my boy Felix and his Hurricanes? How much do I love them? How much do I love the professor? How much do I love being alive, and how much do I love the opportunity to be talking to all of y'all? Give me a big kiss.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to say about, and what's on the horizon for you? What things are you getting into? Do you have any plans down the road?
Well, right now, like I had mentioned that I've been doing some stuff with Solomon Hicks. You know, backing him up, I have a couple co-writes on his new album. In fact, there's a new I did a co-write with Solomon and Kirk Yona, the producer and bass player, of Burning Up. And it's dangerous. It's filthy. And I also co-wrote the title song, How Did I Ever Get This Blue? And Solomon's a rising young blues star, beautiful kid. But Kirk Yona, the producer of it, is interested in me now. And in fact, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to go in and cut about 10 or 12 songs and try and have something out maybe before Christmas. And we're going to do some crazy stuff. We're going to do some songs, some new songs, maybe some old songs, and maybe even we're going to cut. You know, I don't know if you know this, but I've been pioneering this new thing where on stage I do songs, but I don't play no music. I just talk them out. You know, like she don't really care if anybody's looking, be all by herself, and you could catch her cooking. She got all the moves when she shake it on down. She get out on the floor, and people gather around. She got the boom boom when she walk into the room. She got the boom boom, danger loom. She got the boom boom, spells impending doom. She got the boom boom. She dropped the bomb. So, but I'm going to be doing some. This guy wants to cut some stuff like that, and just have some fun, man, and just stay in the game. Can we stay in the game?
Definitely, and it sounds like you're still loving the world of music, which is always very, very cool. Once again, because we're about to play something else off the Diamonds album. Again, how may listeners hear or get a hold of the album?
Get Hip Records, baby. It's in the north side of Pittsburgh. They have a beautiful store, and you can also reach them on the intranet. People say internet. I call it the intranet because I'm ahead of the game. Because I'm so old school, I've never even owned a cell phone. You know what? Now you couldn't love me more. Now you love me. You didn't love me before, but when I told you I never had a cell phone, that sealed the deal. Hey, friends for life, baby.
All righty. We will go with another song. And Norman, what would you like to say about Shakedown?
Wow. Shakedown is Skin and Bone. Not the song Skin and Bone, but it's, once again, we're not, hey, a lot of times when people record, they're trying to impress somebody. And it sounds like it. And, you know, and when I figured that out, and when that thought hit me, it never left the side of my little peanut brain. And Shakedown is a perfect example of a band that could do so much dynamically and musically with fire and pain that didn't even elect to try to do that on that song. They just took it to the bone and told a little story. And it just feels so good. I just think it's fantastic. I think Skin and Bone, Shakedown, is one of the coolest little pieces we ever did. Because it don't sound like we're trying to impress nobody, but it's awfully impressive. You feel me now? Sorry.
All right. Well, Norman, thank you for being a part of the Homegrown Rocker once again. It's been great chatting with you. And, it reminds me that I need to get back out to Pittsville, Pennsylvania and see you play at some point.
Come and hang with me, man. The professor, I need you. We'll get you over to Starlight. We'll fatten you up with some pierogies. You might like that.
Oh, that sounds very, very enticing for sure. All right. Well, thank you for being a part of the show. And another song from Diamond Rio off the Diamonds album. This is Shakedown, and you are hearing it on the Homegrown Rocker.
falling down. Outside it's getting too damn hot. Speaking is tripping, CJ's clowns. Setting up for the shakedown.